My kids will be absolutely astounded. I'm going to start with one of my best poems from 35 years ago. Yeah. Okay, I called it To a Priestly Friend. There are no cloisters for pagans, save the magic grove and secret stream, for an altar my heart in stillness, for sacrament the violet that grows unseen, in woods blessed by silence and rushing of wind and gurgling of water, an energy that mingles in separateness with light that separates in shadows. I dwell in patterns of darkness, rehearsing structures of light, with winged angels buzzing around me to aid my soul in flight. And now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to a couple of poems I wrote for some of our Druid activities. And this one I wrote Samhain, Halloween time, 1997. All hallows, all saints, all souls. In ancient times the herds were killed, the harvest gathered into cellars for the winter, from sunlit days to the warmth of the hearth. The earth moves through a joint in time, chaos abounds. Living men dress as the dead. Genders disappear. The disorder is furthered through pranks that reveal that the trickster rules in love. The wistful legions of the subtle realms are close. The ancestors and teachers join the ceremony as the veil is drawn aside. Dead pumpkins grin on their way to the universal pie to keep life going. The secret ceremony accepts its gifts. We dance on the difficult path marked out by ghosts. We offer them the bread of the fields. We offer them the holy water of all choice. We become what they all have dreamed and more. As the dance continues, the four foods burn in sacrament among the oak, the yew, and the silver birch. Another poem, this one's called Fire Dancing at Avalon. The darling buds of May, bright colors waving, begetting the light half of the year, fertility abounding in the hawthorn bushes. May queens be crowned, maypole dancing here. Light the good fire at midnight to the bright one, to Belenus Apollo, fire dancing at Avalon. Scarlet eggs in the willow, the goddess triune, horns of the bull, sacred snakes of the moon. Morrigan sings to the hawk on the hill. The primrose, the moonstone are all with us still. The stone and the water, garlands and dew, shall echo Excalibur, way of the few. And here's a poem called The Ancestors. The ancestors are with us tonight. They sit laughing on the mountains. They swing through silent forests on midnight wings. They come in form of bears, long dead, extinct, alive in our totem heart of hearts. They whisper when we need counsel, wondering at our fears. The ancestors, after all, are here. They are with us tonight. They bring old forms of poetry, writing it in wings of birds, leaves of trees beckoning. They show us how to call up memory. They help us to forget what we cannot contain, knowing full well all memory will never die in the subtle heart of the glorious beast. We must remember, lest we forget. We are the ancestors reborn. The ancestors are here tonight. Lest we forget, we are here the ancestors are alive and well. And the next poem I wrote, for the summer solstice 1995, Bartelius and God of poetry, music, and art. In the north, the great bear wanders where purple violets grow. In the south, pink salmon run blue waters, white-tipped with froths like snow. The eastern eagle flies red skies as forests burn and grow. In the west, the yellow flowers attract the spotted roe. Grove of oaks, the ravens call. Gentlest light unfolds like lightning play in slow relief. Green man surrounded by candles, head ablaze with bright flowers, surround with colors of light, feeds the initiates, feeds the ravens, feeds the goddess clear and near, pours wine over ancient stones and says, blessings be and peace to all free beings. Green man whispers, it is the wind. Here's a poem called Otherwise. I woke up once on another earth, in another time, an uncertain birth, in another dimension, in another lifetime, in a different body, with an opposing sign. Another shade of red, a different hue of blue, a secret word for love in the mystery of you. In a faraway home with an unfamiliar crowd, from unique birthing gown to the eternal shroud. I wrote a poem in a different rhyme. It was slow in coming. I took my time. Okay, and here's what I call cleaning song. Let me dust the walls for you and create corners of clarity where before you feared to see the cobwebs. Let me wipe the slate clean as I sweep the floor, as I brighten the gleaming wood of doorways to each pleasure. May I presume to clear the sunbeams that lay unbidden through crystal windows to light your rainbows reflected from each particle of dust. Swept away these rainbows, let me lighten the space around with dark time waves and organize the dawn. Okay, now this poem is called I Dreamed I Was Running. I dreamed I was running from the trees. Trees were chasing me, dancing in the wind, shining leaves and lovely seeds flying after me. I ran into a house. The house was made of trees. I sat down puffing on a chair. The chair was made of trees. The eyes of my ancestors followed me. From old photos and paintings on the wall, I looked at a newspaper for guidance. The newspaper was made of trees. I ran outside, thinking of my ancestors' eyes. I was suddenly surrounded by trees. I called out to my mother and father. I called out to my grandmothers and grandfathers, and to my great-grandmothers and to my great-grandfathers for help. They called out to their parents for a suggestion. They, in turn, called out to their parents for wisdom. I stopped running. I had turned into a tree. This poem is called Alone One Day. Tired of being alone one day, I wandered out. I nodded my head to God, passing, his head down, hauling his grubby shopping cart loaded with empty cans and bedroll. I walked a block, hopped onto a bus, waving my fast pass at the stately goddess who sat behind the steering wheel. I sat next to a dapper white-haired god who was wearing a fedora and twirling his wing-shaped mustache. "Hello," he said. "Lovely day, huh?" A little old lady goddess piped up and added, "Yes, but rain's coming. I can feel it in my knees." God, as a handsome dark-haired young man, jumped on the bus with his dollar extended. I looked out the side window at cherubs playing with their Virgin Mother at the playground we were passing. Sacred trees swayed in the wind. Sacred totem dogs ran and played. A tall, slender goddess walked on the sidewalk with a sacred parrot on her shoulder. I got off the bus at Steiner Street and went to a sacred coffee house. My priest served me ceremonial coffee as I quietly waited for the priestess to bring my sacramental salad and holy spaghetti. I ran into an enlightened friend with whom I discussed projected eternity, and who then drove me home to my temple. An excellent day. I was not alone.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I'm going to read a poem called The Old Druidess. Witch-like hair and teeth, eyes gleam with wisdom, with years and decades spent in living, determined to live for these few years. Years ago I would not have lived further. Years ago I would have been reviled, feared, misunderstood, and burned for who I was and might become now. The oldest and clearest memories from the keeper of the children. Old enough not to fear betrayal, old enough not to fear abandonment, only hoping for more children. More children, mine or others, children of the birds, of those that run on their hooves, children of those that swim, children of those that wave tall branches to their father, the sun. My holy dances usurped and raped for content, torn of their mysteries, I yet invent new ones, to dance naked before the blind. Old enough not to fear wrinkles, nor uneven teeth, nor bad knees, as I have seen me at my best and worst, and know that whatever is still left, it's still me and can add more. Years ago I might have been summarily hanged and burned and chopped into little pieces, each one of which would jump up and become a whole new me, ready to go again. Years ago I would have cried to see my child leave me, and my growing old enough to realize that that was always the goal and the whole point. Years ago I would never have died at all, but only giggled and come back in a whole new body as a little girl. But I know the old woman's mind. Don't you wish you did? Well, you do. I'm here, your grandmother's archives. This poem I wrote years ago, and it's titled Spirit of Liberated Women, but I originally called it Public Re-Evolvement of Sex, Labor, Liberation, Love. Sometimes I will sell it and will not be called prostitute or wife. Sometimes I will give it away and will not be called a slut. Sometimes I will reward virtue thus and will not be called a groupie. Sometimes I will not share it with anyone and will not be called frigid or spinster. Sometimes I will try to say no nicely and will not be called a cock teaser. Sometimes I will celebrate God in my body and will not be driven out of the temple by Jesus with the moneylenders and con men. Sometimes I will be Mary Vestal Virgin and will make sex in the air with passers-by and will not be shown my place. Sometimes I will bake holy bread, and if you like my biscuits, You'll love my buns. As long as you pay for the flour, except when you are a guest. Sometimes I will love my sister as a mirror and will not be called Bull Dyke. Sometimes I will explore the body consciousness of my teachers and will not be called promiscuous. Sometimes I will reflect the moon as well as sun and will not be called defiled. Sometimes I will match my X against his Y and will not be considered the lesser. Sometimes I will love my mother as myself and will not be called a motherfucker. Sometimes I will produce not a baby, but a magical child and will not be called unnatural. Sometimes I will trust my own strength and will not be threateningly likened to a man. Sometimes I will shine my light and will not be dimmed by your anger, fear, and pain. Sometimes I will walk barefoot until my feet explode in orgasm and will not be noticed as out of the ordinary. Sometimes I will touch a being and see only myself and will not be pressured to explain. Sometimes I will trust God, myself, and the universe and will not check to see which sex I am. Sometimes I will improve communications with a business partner and will not give up my patrimony for matrimony. Sometimes I will be raped and forced to submit and will not be found to be the aggressor. Sometimes I will be enslaved, beaten, and oppressed, and will not give up my crown to the slaveholders. Sometimes I will make a virgin birth, and my child will not be called bastard. When I was living here, too, I was involved with the poetry readings at the Sacred Grounds Cafe and working on my own books of poetry and stuff. And I got to know quite a few poets around town. In the last 10 years, I've been MC there, and I've been publishing anthologies of our poets' poetry. And so I'm up to the 15th volume of anthology now.
You might talk about your history with the Sacred Grounds Coffee House poetry reading.
That was a wonderful place. I read my first poem there, the famous poem, actually, in 1972. I was living down the next corner with my two kids, and I got a job there. Because, I was kind of bored. I didn't have anything better to do besides the kids. And so I got a job there and worked there for 5 years. And Minnie's Can-Do Club had just closed down, and all the poets came over to the Sacred Grounds. And so all the best poets in town were coming in there. And I was in back, getting to know all of them, getting to know their names, getting to know each other, personal kind of relations. And learning a lot, just listening to them read and being able to try out a couple of my poems from time to time and see if it's as good as I hoped it was. And I enjoy reading my own poems, so, that worked. And so I worked there for 5 years, and I back and forth to other places, and then the last 10 years I went back there just for the poetry, and the MC asked me, since he was having a heart bypass operation, if I would like to take over emceeing for him. And I was delighted to. Yeah, and Jack Michelin, he was a very famous and extremely well beloved poet, and I gave him the poem that I wrote, The Public Re-Evolvement of Sex liberation, love, and he took it to Amsterdam, and he was passing around copies there to people he knew. And you know what they were doing in Amsterdam with that poem? They were gluing it to the doors of churches. Oh, I love it. Just imagine. Yes. Here's a poem to end with, Child of God. Prodigal, I wander homeward, knowing that when I arrive, if it were there, the fatted calf would only spoil me, for I belong to a younger race and must run on my own cloven hooves.